All right, we're back. New episode today, and we're going to talk about alcohol.
Just in time for the new year.
Of course. And we get a lot of questions about this as well, and that's why we're discussing it. But I think a lot of clients that I've had in training have mentioned things like, over the course of the weekend, I went out and I drank this or had X amount of drinks. And they're completely blind to knowing exactly what they're drinking, how many calories they're having, and then I guess some of the processes that occur afterwards involving alcohol. So Lauren's going to talk about some of that stuff today, and then hopefully you guys will have a better idea as to how many calories you're actually consuming over the course of the week as it relates to alcohol. And then, the sugary ones, are there more calories in that as compared to just like, vodka? And is vodka actually like a super diet friendly alcoholic beverage? I think that's a good one. Get that a lot. Lauren, your show.
There's no carbs in it. This isn't my show, and
it's clear. It's clear. The vodka is clear, so it's good. It's like water.
This isn't my show at all because, as I've said before, I don't even really drink. So, I think this maybe is more your show.
Sure.
We were gonna start it off by taking a shot, though. Come on.
But this is actually fruit punch.
Go ahead. It's Powerade.
Wow, it is. I actually thought we were potentially taking a shot.
No, you told me you wouldn't. No, it's just Powerade.
Wait, the drinking age is 21, by the way.
Powerade 0.
If you're watching this and you're under the age of 21, you should not be drinking alcohol.
For sure.
That being said, this is still good information for you for when you do turn 21 and you start consuming alcoholic beverages.
Mm-hmm. So I think it's important for people to understand that alcohol does contain calories, 7 calories per gram. For those of you who are unsure.
Which in relation, not to cut you off, in relation to carbohydrates, proteins, and fats, where does that sit?
It's on the higher end. So carbohydrates and protein are both 4 calories per gram, and then fats are 9 calories per gram. So alcohol's at 7. So alcohol is also not satiating at all. They're liquid calories. And just because you get something like vodka or some of the spirits that don't have carbs doesn't mean that doesn't count. It's still calories. So quick little introduction. So when you drink alcohol, kind of goes right in your bloodstream, makes a beeline to your liver to start being eliminated because our bodies actually don't recognize alcohol and it kind of doesn't know what to do with it. So it doesn't metabolize it like it does some of the other macronutrients. So that's why it makes that beeline to the liver to be eliminated like right away. It's almost treated as like a poison.
When you have to pee a lot after you drink.
Yeah, like your kidneys are going on overdrive trying to filter everything out. What's important to know with that is actually when you're drinking alcohol, a lot of your other macronutrients, the metabolism of those, your carbs, your fats, your protein, are actually put on the back burner. So it makes a lot of those more easily put into storage, especially dietary fat. So something to consider when you're drinking and you're eating in a surplus, not in a deficit, because a deficit is what matters most when it comes to fat loss. But if you're in a surplus, like those calories are going to be preferentially stored because it's just trying to get rid of the alcohol. So I think alcohol has its place in any diet. I think you can still drink and lose fat to a certain extent, and just know that if you're drinking more than the recommended 1 or 2 drinks a day, it could stall your progress. But I think people get confused with drinking and what it does to their bodies. Because here's the thing, it's liquid calories, and again, it's not satiating at all. So when you're having a couple drinks, you're not at all thinking about how to cut those calories out of your diet through food, right? You don't, at least most people don't think, okay, I'm going to have a couple glasses of wine, so I'm not going to have the appetizers or the desserts or anything. Like, we just go all in because alcohol...
I've been there. I've done that. I've tried to be in a calorie deficit while still making room for a drink or 2 a night, and it is incredibly difficult.
It is.
If you're going to add those couple hundred to few hundred calories worth of alcohol, that means you have to subtract 300 calories of potentially satiating foods.
Sure.
Like you mentioned.
And protein.
And it's brutal. So it's almost, when I did this for a period of time, and I was like, I still want to be able to have a couple drinks on the weekend to stay under what for me was 3,000 calories. That meant I have to eat under 2,500, which just felt like I was starving all the time. So it is really difficult to stay in a legitimate deficit with the contribution of alcohol to your daily caloric intake.
Sure, and if you're drinking enough to get drunk, whatever that amount is for you, I mean, your inhibitions are lowered. You're usually out indulging with a lot of your friends or your family. You're having a good time. And when you're drunk, that 2 o'clock in the morning cheesesteak sounds like a really good idea. And that's when you start to get into the surplus of calories, which is what, is going to make you gain body fat. So you're definitely not as aware of what you're doing when you're drinking. And sometimes even alcohol can make you feel more hungry, which is interesting. So I just think that it's something to consider when you're looking at all the calories that you get from that. So we can go into that real fast. So typically, you have like your light beers, right? They're going to be about 100 calories. They're kind of all a little bit different. You have your regular beers, which are going to be not that much higher, 125 calories on average. And look, these are like average numbers, so these aren't going to be perfect. But a typical glass of red wine, 5 ounces, is about 120 calories, 125 calories. So just for reference, this is 5 ounces, right? So when someone says I have a glass of wine, would you just compare the two different glasses, right? So you're looking at maybe a pour in a restaurant might be 5 ounces, right? But if you're at your friend's house, your girlfriend's house, or so-and-so's house, that very quickly becomes 10 ounces, and you had a glass of wine. Now you're looking at double the calories. So just something to consider when you had a glass of something, like that matters as far as the amount of ounces. So
the same applies for beer too. Sorry to cut you off.
Oh, sure, yeah.
If you're getting a draft beer that's 16 ounces versus the 12 ounce cans, like this is 12 ounces.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But if you're getting a draft, they're pouring 16
Sure.
in that cup typically. So understanding you're having 1.3 servings of that beer as opposed to just one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's not just one beer technically. And even with shots too, like a typical shot glass, which is what we had with the Powerade Zero, is 1.5 ounces, and that's almost this filled up. But when you get shots at a bar, they can be in much bigger glasses, so you're actually looking at potentially 2.5 ounces. So again, just more calories. So when you're looking at 1.5 ounces of most hard liquors, that's anywhere from like 95 to 110 calories. So you're out at a bar, you're having a good time, you're taking shots with your buddies, so 500 calories of shots later, and you're drinking beer with it. So you had 5 or 6 beers on top of that, right? That's not uncommon.
It's normal. Very normal night.
So you're looking easily at 1,000 calories there, and then you start ordering the appetizers and the pizza, and you could have a 3,000 calorie day very, very easily. So this isn't to like demonize alcohol. I think it definitely has its place, and there's something to be said about de-stressing at the end of the night with a glass of wine or something. If that's going to help bring your stress levels down, then I think it's important to incorporate that in and just find a way to kind of balance out your calories elsewhere. Did you have anything you wanted to say?
No, I think awareness will potentially sound like demonizing, but I think that's the biggest thing, is to understand and be aware of this, of like exactly how many calories you're having. Like I said before, when I was still including alcohol in my daily intake, but trying to stay under 3,000, it was brutal. So again, not to demonize it myself, but I noticed that if I gave up alcohol, that being in a caloric deficit, or at least having significantly less, would have been huge for me. That actually led to a water between alcoholic beverages type strategy, which was a phenomenal strategy for me. That worked very well because I would generally never consume more than 2 beverages after that.
Well, not only does that help when it comes to controlling your calories, but that's actually something else we were going to touch on, was what do you do for a hangover? That can help, having the water in between your drinks, because you're staying more hydrated. There's a lot of, like fancy, what's the word I'm thinking of?
Well, they have like gummies and stuff that say like
hangover cure. Yeah, no. I don't think we don't even really fully understand what gives us a hangover. We think it's a combination, like scientifically, we think it's a combination of dehydration, and the headache you get from that. Your body definitely has a level of increased inflammation from the alcohol. Your hormones can be kind of out of whack from that. You aren't sleeping as well, right? A lot of people will crash after a night of drinking, right? They fall asleep maybe a little more easily, but the sleep is pretty restless and crappy.
I've heard very, very low quality sleep when you're drunk.
You've heard?
I have heard that.
You don't get that?
Well, typically from clients like, oh yeah, I have a couple drinks, it puts me right to sleep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but they don't sleep well.
Exactly.
So I think the combination of all of those things is what kind of makes you feel like garbage in the morning. And there's really nothing that's been proven right now to really help. Everyone likes to think that they want to have a big fat breakfast in the morning, right? Something to soak up the alcohol. The alcohol is pretty much gone out of your system. Your blood alcohol content's probably going back down, I guess, to 0, and that's typically when you feel the onset of hangover symptoms. But there's really not a whole lot you can do. Just be more mindful of how many drinks you're having and maybe how quickly you're having them, and try to have some water in between. But otherwise, there's no real cure for hangover. Maybe Advil might help, maybe not for the headache, but that's pretty much it.
Great. Anything else?
No, I think that's it.
All right. If you guys have any questions related to alcohol, feel free to ask. You could DM Lauren on her Absolute Nutrition Solutions Instagram, or feel free to send us an email, or those clients that have my cell phone information, feel free to shoot me a text.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Don't drink too much.